So, in a display of solidarity, uh, one of the most popular Bernie Sanders subreddit groups on Reddit has decided to go all in on making sure that Tulsi Gabbard has a spot on that debate stage. Um, the one of the I guess you would call him a moderator of the groups, or one of the founders, if even his name is Hoot Hoot Burns. And I urge you all to follow him on Twitter, or follow her on Twitter, or follow the owl on Twitter. It is literally the Avi of a Hoot Hoot, the Pokemon. Okay, some of you may be familiar with this particular Pokemon as the one, as literally the Pokemon that pops up at night while you're playing either Silver or Gold or Crystal. Like, that's the only Pokemon that you could ever find at night. Yeah, that's Hoot Hoot. That's the Abby of the person. So I strongly encourage you to go follow him. So in this particular article, he presents a great breakdown of not only why we should be helping Tulsi as a pragmatic thing. Like, if you're a Sanders supporter, and once again, I don't want people to think of the advocacy of either Tulsi or Bernie as the false dichotomy as some people has presented it as, because it's not. It's not a false. It is a false dichotomy to try and pretend like you can't be a supporter of both. Yes, I endorse Tulsi Gabbard. I'm going to do a video at length this week to explain why I endorse Tulsi Gabbard, but that doesn't mean I'm not a Sanders supporter. And there are people who are Sanders supporters who are, Sanders all the way, but are still avid supporters of Tulsi Gabbard. Unfortunately, however, there is a group of people, a large group, it's not a minority, in the Bernie camp, and a very small minority in the Tulsi camp, because most of them are still Bernie supporters. They just see something more in Tulsi that they like, that they believe that you can't support both. I encountered many of these people while I was in LA. I'm not going to say anybody by name, because this person is a friend of mine, but she actually said verbatim, I don't understand how donating to Tulsi helps Bernie at all. I don't think we should be doing that. I think we should be focusing on our resources. Now, my question to her was then, and I'm going to get into the article in a second, but I just had to bring this up because it's super important. My question to her was then, so you want to concentrate all your resources into Bernie Sanders. And that sounds all well and good. But remember what happened last election? I was there. She was too. I said, has election fraud been addressed? No, Tulsi's addressed it. But Bernie himself and his supporters at large feel like campaigning and volunteering more is going to somehow stop the DNC from cheating like they did last time. So election fraud hasn't been addressed. How is Bernie going to bring those people back in that he pissed off? Because that's a real issue. You need as many eyes on the ground to detect cheating. You need as many votes at the ballot box as you can possibly get. And there are a lot of people that Bernie pissed off. Also, what is going to stop them from just handing the election to who the hell they wanted to? I was at I was at the Democratic National Convention. I was there in Philadelphia. Bernie won. Not once, but twice. And because it was basically him going toe-to-toe with Hillary, it was factions. There was the Hillary faction and the Bernie faction. Nothing in between to buffer out the truth and to tell the truth, because it looked like that one person was playing for the other team. Like, no matter what, if you told the truth, it was going to be the truth that was convenient to your team. So no one can address this. She couldn't either. And that's why I think it's important for us to look at articles and appreciate the solidarity that comes from articles like this, so that we can all learn, grow, and move forward together, understanding that the movement comes before any individual candidate, any individual person, and anybody's individual self-interest at that. So the article says, now, I know what you're thinking. Why would you suggest boosting a candidate running against Bernie Sanders? After all, I'm all in for Bernie to be the guy who gets the nomination. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. We're going to talk to him about that because I feel like he said that out of word. I'm pretty sure it's ifs, ands, or buts, but I'm not going to hold that against you, hoot. It's all right. Good luck trying to change my mind on that. But allow me to lay out some of the reasons why I believe a viable, even a competitive Tulsi Gabbard candidacy, in particular, helps Bernie far more than harms him. Reason 1, delegate pulling. I've actually gone into this before. Put simply, Tulsi is someone I believe would release her delegates to Bernie ahead of the convention if he got more votes than she did. He would probably be right about that. This would ensure that he receives enough delegates to secure the nomination on the first ballot. And it is absolutely critical that we do so. If we fail to secure the majority needed on the first ballot at the convention, superdelegates come back into play at the second round. And we're pretty much locked into a second term of Trump. That is not an exaggeration. Okay? Those corporate bastards would rather have 2 scoops of Donnie at the expense of a habitable planet than win, after all. Now, what is he referring to? He's referring to the 50% delegate requirement in order to clinch the Democratic nomination and basically prevent it from going to a contested convention. And so, yeah, you need somebody else. Look at what they did. They oversaturated the race in the establishment side, and a lot of people thought that was a good thing. Many people are operating under this idea that these candidates are trying to win 50% before the convention. No. I mean, yeah, it would be nice, but don't ever make the mistake of believing that they are that disillusioned. They see the writing on the wall. They realize as much as anybody else does, if anybody around the world is watching, Bernie Sanders is the clear front runner, right? Mathematically speaking, quantitatively speaking, the numbers, the volunteers, he's the front runner. To ignore this reality would be a bad move strategically. So you have to think ahead. If you can't win this battle, sometimes it's best to retreat. You keep your soldiers on the ground. You still gather intel, but it's better to retreat and wait until you have a better opportunity in the upper hand. And that is what the convention offers the establishment. You don't need votes in every state, people. You just need to keep the votes in individual states, depending on which state it is. I know some states it's like 8%. Other states it's like 15%. But let's just go with the high of 15%, right? Do you think Kamala needs to win every state? We've been over this hundreds of times, but we'll go over it again. Do you think Kamala needs to win every state? No. She needs to win 15% of the California delegates. Do you think Beto needs to win every state? No. He needs to win 15% of the Texas delegates. Do you think Kirsten Gillibrand needs to win every state? I mean, are you getting the picture here? If they get 15% from the states with the most delegates, all of those combined will allow for an establishment candidate to take Bernie at the bare minimum to the second round of the convention, where the superdelegates will put us in basically a post-apocalyptic era after Trump gets reelected, because that's what's going to happen. This is why it's so important to make sure that Tulsi is there to garner a lot of the delegates that would otherwise potentially be spread out to people voting for, I don't know, maybe somebody's voting for Kirsten Gillibrand, Amy Klobuchar, or Kamala because they're a woman. Maybe that's the reason why. Well, Tulsi can take a lot of those votes away. Maybe someone wants to see a veteran in office. Tulsi brings a lot of those votes into the picture. Like, you see where we're going here? Like, there are a lot of, and Tulsi's platform itself, I mean, it's out of this world. So, like, Tulsi needs to be on the debate stage so she can start pulling votes She will pull very few away from Bernie. Very few. Marginal. Unless something miraculous happens. If she pulls votes away, it'll be bringing new people into the voting process and then pulling votes away from the establishment. Now, in the event that she does pull votes away from Bernie, then Bernie has to face a question, with himself, which is she more progressive and do I need to move further left? And that's a good thing. We want that. So, reason number 2. She can speak to things Bernie may not be able to, pushing him to do even better. Oh, well, it's almost like he heard me give that speech before he wrote this. Whereas Bernie calling out the travesty of 2016 would be seen as sour grapes, Tulsi would be well placed on the debate stage and in interviews to draw critical attention to the past in distinctly non-sour grape ways. This would serve to pressure the DNC to stay honest and remind them good and well that we remember what they did. Oh, do we remember? And while we're willing to look forward, we also understand that those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. This accountability for the past doesn't only apply to her rhetoric either. Case in point, her Securing America's Elections Act. And what a coincidence that bill is when you consider the study found Bernie did better in the 2016 primary in states with paper ballots. I know, right? What a coincidence. In the figure that who puts up, primary states with a paper trail, Sanders won 51%. Primary states without a paper trail, Sanders won 35%. Coincidence? Coinkadink-a-link? I don't think so. But he goes on to say that accountability for 2016 is not the only thing that she can potentially address more forcefully in certain manners of foreign policy and other thornier to the establishment matters, such as protecting whistleblowers. Tulsi can call out what some of us suspect, but cannot necessarily prove. Bernie also, to some extent, agrees with. You could argue she, whether intentionally or not, serves as Bernie's scout, quote unquote, in these matters. And then the third reason is that Tulsi, like Bernie, has crossover appeal, which I talk about all the time. I'm not going to go all the way into that because we covered that earlier in the video. So overall, this Arthur, who burns, shout out to this guy, and the Way of the Burn subreddit, shout out to them. Strongly encourage you all go join their subreddit group. They understand what's at stake. They understand that Bernie and Tulsi need each other like Bernie and Tulsi understand that they need each other. They understand that Bernie and Tulsi are allies like Bernie and Tulsi understand that they're allies. Tulsi actually just spoke at the Sanders Institute the other day, funny enough. I think it was regarding human rights atrocities. Like, this is what we need more of. From both sides. I've seen a lot of this with Bernie people. Like I said, I've seen both sides. And I would still like to see, I see a lot of this with Tulsi people as well. Don't get me wrong. But I would like to see even more from Tulsi people. Obviously, fundraising isn't an issue for Bernie. But there is still something to be said by not allowing certain narratives to persist that would do harm to Bernie, because it ultimately does harm to us. If they go after Bernie first, who do you think they're going to go after next? People. Let's have some common sense here. We already know how this story ends when it comes to the establishment and how they treat outsiders. So shout out to who burns in the Way of the Burn subreddit. Definitely go join them if you are on subreddit. And yeah, donate to Tulsi. She's 1,500 donations away. Unique donations, not you can't have a repeat donation. It has to be a unique donation from a different address and a different email. Do with that information what you will. But different address, different email. Unique donation. Donate right now. $1 will get Tulsi Gabbard on that debate stage. So thank you all so much for tuning into this segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. And always remember, people, more than anything else, find your balance. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. Don't forget to join us on Roku and catch our Roku exclusives. Also, help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and JustNForm.com. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.